Okay, folks, we were looking at Edge Magazine issue 13, which would be October 1994. And what's also announced is this new magazine. I don't think it lived a long life, but it's called .NET, the Internet Magazine. Yes, late 1994, people were catching on to the popular use of the Internet thanks to the 486 computer being able to use a browser. I don't know if Explorer had been released yet, but definitely Netscape. I don't know what Wavefront is. Anyhow. Okay, so Alone in the Dark being re-released for the 3DO 2 years after the original version. And Edge gives it a 7. I believe the original release 2 years ago would have gotten a 9 or so. Should have been an 8, but knowing Edge, they probably would have given it a 9. And they compare it to Dr. Hauser, which was also released for the 3DO. And they say this game has better combat, even though I would never play Alone in the Dark for the combat alone. But yeah, one of the first real-time strategy games, survival horror games. Star Control 2, another re-release, which would be 2 years old for the 3DO. And it only gets a 6. I think it should have been higher. Star Control 2 is a fantastic space sim in the vein of Elite. I believe you could play against each other. The combat is top-down, if I recall correctly. It could be confused with Star Control 1. But you can go around and meet all kinds of interesting people. You know, it's Sharper. Or aliens. And go through space. And lose yourself doing all the different things. A lot of freedom, a lot of things to try out. And become the best space person in the universe. And if you look up Star Control 2 on the internet, you'll see that at the time it was one of the most popular games and still seen as one of the best games ever for the PC. 3DO version, well, okay, they probably subtracted a point for it being the 3DO, but I bet it works fine. Here's an interesting commercial, which is very sexist. Look. It says 5 different guns, missiles, super missiles, 2 kinds of bombs, and a change of clothes. Well, she is a girl, remember? So, apparently changing clothes is a girl thing, and the other things are not a girl things. Hard to imagine a commercial like that anymore these days. It looks to me like they added the face later on, because it's a different drawing style. Probably done by the British advertising agency. Super Metroid, one of the best games ever made. Not very good commercials. There's also a commercial on TV with a dog being, well, blasted. What's this? A fishing game for the 3DO? No, they're showing all the good games. Commander 3. Well, I don't know this one. Is it Seventh Guest? No, it's that silly party game. Anyhow, 3DO having an advertisement. Hey, Mortal Kombat 2 being released for the home consoles. The 16-bit versions were very good, especially the Super Nintendo version. And the Mega Drive version played fantastically too, though. So, hardly any need to upgrade to the 32-bit systems for this game. And Edge gives it an 8, which I think is the correct number. So there's Burning Soldier for the 3DO, which only gets a 2. And Edge is very disappointed. Did I say it was for the 3DO? Well, I didn't look too much in this game. It just looks like a pretty game with things to shoot at, like many of the other games. And that's it for the reviews this month. We now have Impossible Mission to discuss, a game released in 1985, known for its relentless difficulty, also known for being one of the first Commodore 64 games that looked really good. So, while a lot of people in America and Japan were playing Super Mario Brothers, the British were playing games like Impossible Mission on the Commodore 64, and Elite on their BBC Micros, and Night Lore on their Amstrad. I think there's an Amstrad version, but there's that Sinclair. So, a platforming game with a lot of action. I don't think it holds up as well as Super Mario Brothers at the time, but I can understand that Edge raved about this game. It's interesting how British Edge still is in the mid-90s, constantly hearkening back to games released which were mostly popular in Britain and not anywhere else. Could be some British pride, or maybe they just weren't aware of how good the Nintendo games were. Maybe it's my personal experience, but I really do believe that the games on the Famicom and Entertainment System have held up much better than the ones on the Commodore 64. Maybe that's just me. Okay, somebody's selling 3DOs and Jaguars. I don't have this. And the charts. Is Night Trap still here? I don't think so. I think Night Trap has finally lost and left the Mega CD top 10. And at number 1 we have FIFA Soccer. CDI has a full list of games, but Defender of the Crown was quite a big thing in the late 80s for the computer. Hotel Mario is considered by some people the best game on the CDI. I don't see the Zelda games though, interestingly. So the US, apparently the FIFA Soccer for the Super Nintendo is the best-selling game, which I find odd. But even odder is at number 2 is NBA Showdown for the Super Nintendo, which is not a good basketball game, not at all. Electronic Arts took a while before they made good basketball games. So let's see, Liberation is number 1 for the Amiga, which makes sense. And arcade, we had Daytona, Ridge Racer, Lethal Forcers 2, Suzuka 8 Hours 2, and Virtual Racing, so the usual games. Japan is selling Street Fighter and Dragon Ball Z for the Game Boy. Stunt Race FX is popular there, Super Bomberman 2. And which games are Edge readers looking forward to? Well, Moto Town GP, or at least I think it's the same game. Killer Instinct, of course. Iron Soldier for the Jaguar. Don't remember that game very well. Donkey Kong Country, of course, and the Need for Speed for 3DO. Alright. Business ads. Any interesting ones? We have Game Tech. Colorful ad. Interactive television. Would that be a thing? Rare looking good. I love this commercial. You want to move to Canada? It's not very convincing. Some Marvel superheroes here being used for an advert. Okay. And now we're at the main attraction, the interview with Shiny Entertainment. And they found each other via headhunting, apparently. They talk a lot about animation and their craft. So they apparently do use a 3D tool of sorts, but they don't explain how, and they explain how detailed their animations are. They mentioned the Super Nintendo version being the better version, but I don't agree with them. And they haven't been convinced to get into the newer consoles yet. They explained that they're perfectly fine with what they're using at the moment. And they're talking about a new genre that hasn't been done before. Which game would that be? Would that be MDK? I think that was their next big release. They also had Messiah, but I think that came after MDK. So definitely not Enter the Matrix, which would be a huge mistake. And we have Q&A. More technical things. Let's look at their questions up close. So, will the Saturn version be arcade perfect? No, but Virtua Fighter Remix would be better than the arcade version. Can you enhance a network Doom experience by playing with someone in another country? Hey. So people talking about online shooting at each other. That would be popular in a couple of years. Samurai Showdown. Asking, what about the Neo Geo CD? And what's up with the Power BC? When is that going to take off? Well, unfortunately it won't. Unfortunately, Intel remained the biggest player. So next month we'll be going to France to look at Amazing Studios for Heart of Darkness, a huge flop, but Edge loved it so much they put it on the cover, I believe, 3 times. Not one. So it's typical Edge, not having any idea which games would be good, instead focusing on British and French developers who show some nice looking graphics. And here we have the black cover again. So that's Edge issue number 13, late 1994. And late 94 was a good year for video games. Donkey Kong Country, Earthworm Jim. Japan had Final Fantasy VI. Super Metroid was being purchased that Christmas. So let's look forward to the future of 1994. See you then.